As we speak, as we bring you this broadcast, Operation All Out, an integrated operation to hunt down the terrorists responsible for one of the most shocking waves of attacks in Assam, has begun. It involves the army, it involves the Assam Rifles, it involves central paramilitary forces and the Assam police. Not in recent times has such a large operation been envisaged for a specific wave of attacks. Tonight on To The Point, we're going to debate, is this an inflection point, a milestone in operations against terrorism in the Northeast? And joining me this evening, Kishalai Bhattacharjee, an award-winning journalist, senior editor and a person who has tracked affairs in the Northeast and reported from the Northeast for many years, is with us. Also with us from Delhi, Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, formerly Director General Infantry with the Indian Army. And joining us live from Sonitpur, Ground Zero, my colleague Manogya Loiwal, who has with her two persons. They're standing behind her, as you can see in those pictures, who've been displaced. They are from the place that was attacked and now they are in relief camps. We're going to go to her in just a moment. I want to start off by asking Kishalai. Kishalai, you've reported from Assam. You are aware, deeply so, of the genesis of, of the shocking attacks that we're seeing take place right now. Could you tell us what you think, your view as a journalist of this operation? Many things are being said about it. Some of them are very specific. But as a journalist who has tracked operations of this kind, perhaps in the past as well, what is your first view of Operation All Out?
Well, I think the government had no options but to crack down. It was always a dramatic military crackdown. In the past also we've seen. Doesn't yield much results. I don't think so. It remotely is going to be a milestone operation of any kind. They are actually in a bit of a situation because in Bodo land, Shiv, there are actually three groups.
Yes.
The one erstwhile BLT who runs the Autonomous Council, the NDFB, the mother group whose leader Ranjan Daimar is in the jail and they are in talks with the government of India and ceasefire, and there's a third group. Now the government cannot have negotiations with another group because they have nothing to offer. So in the absence of any policy or absence of any real idea of how to take forward the peace process, what they have arrived at is to eliminate this particular group, which is the NDFBS. Operations will continue. Operations have always been continuing there. So it's not like operations are going to be intensified. So it's not like a new operation has been launched today. It's just that the operations are going to be intensified. But when I spoke to the people within the government this evening, they said that it is not something that is going to happen overnight. This is going to take a long time because we know that they do have camps across the border. The area is contiguous to Arunachal Pradesh on one side, Bhutan on the other side, beyond Arunachal Pradesh is Myanmar. I'm not very sure whether they have the intelligence inputs of where these people are located. But I don't see something dramatically coming out. I think, we can discuss this later. The issue is not military so much, but it's the question of statehood and how the government of India and the government of Assam can actually resolve that.
Okay, that's a somber note. You're saying that the military operation itself is not going to yield very much. I want to go across to Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad. I hope he can hear me. General Prasad, very specific things being said about this operation. Like Kishalai pointed out, operations have been on in the Northeast for a very long time. The army's been there for a very long time. Your view of the challenges ahead. We've heard about 9,000 troops. Many units are going to be on the ground. The army is going to seal off the borders. The paramilitary are going to conduct, combing out operations to flush out these terrorists. Very specific things being said. But to the common person out there, as an army man yourself, sir, what are the specific challenges of going after these terrorists in Assam at this point?
See, this is a very difficult situation and a typical insurgency-related situation. Here the army has to do a long-term operation.
Yes.
Please understand that all such operations are based on intelligence. And intelligence is not just intelligence as we all commonly talk about it. Intelligence has many aspects to it. First of all, it is the collection of intelligence.
Yes.
Then it is the collation of intelligence. Then it is the interpretation of intelligence. Then it is the dissemination of intelligence. Now, all of it is a very scientific procedure of gathering intelligence.
Yes.
When it converts, an information converts into intelligence. That's point one. Point two, the army has inducted close to 70 columns, as I understand.
Yes, that's
now,
right.
these columns essentially are going to do some kind of border sealing, if at all it can be called, or maybe do some kind of a flag march. Now, you must understand that these operations are basically not army operations. It's not basically army tasks.
Correct, yes.
Army is using troops. Yes, indeed, it will create certain amount of conditions over there. The army using helicopters. Now, please understand that we use helicopters primarily for information gathering.
Yes, right.
We are not using helicopters as gunships as Pakistan does in North Waziristan. We are not using any ammunition from these helicopters. These helicopters are only being used for information gathering, for trying to track out where these people have gone. So don't misunderstand the use of helicopters in that context as what Pakistan does.
Very important
point. The next point is this. To resolve this problem, the army will immediately take certain actions which will bring kind of a peace at the face of it.
Okay.
But that does not mean that the problem is resolved. The problem is far more serious.
Yes, as
the problem is about demographic imbalance. The problem is about land issues.
Yes.
The problem is about civic development. The problem is about, general conditions that are prevailing there.
Yes.
From what I understand, the area where this activity has taken place is quite inaccessible.
Absolutely.
So, unless communications improve, these are the issues which create an insurgency kind of a situation.
Okay.
The last thing I want to say is
Yes, sir.
that when you target people by killing them, there is bound to be a reaction.
Yes.
Now, recently, 40 of these Bodo militants were killed. And of course, the reaction was anticipated.
And a warning was issued as well.
There were certain amount of intelligence reports also.
Yes.
Why we couldn't act, why we didn't act is a different matter. We can discuss it.
Okay.
But your principal question is, army. Yes, army is going to create a situation where some kind of normalcy will begin to show.
Okay.
But that is not going to be a lasting story.
Okay, I want to hear, I want our viewers to hear from, the people who are, at least for this moment, the face of this crisis. As Kishaloi and General Prasad have said, this is not a new issue. This is something that has been festering for many years. Operations have been on for decades, really. But right now, with me live from Sonitpur is our correspondent Manogya Loiwal, and with her are people from the relief camps, people who've actually, managed to get away from the places that have come under attack. Manogya, as Operation All Out begins in Assam, many things are being said about it, but the two men standing with you are the people actually suffering what's going on right now. What do they think? Since they've spent so many years in Assam, Manogya, what do they think about Operation All Out? Do they have any faith that it could yield any results at all?
Well, Shay, what we have gathered during the day while talking to the people primarily is that they do not have faith in the state government. They feel that they have lost all kind of faith and confidence in it, especially because of the Adivasis who feel that the Bodo militants opened fire, the NDFBS faction especially, which opened fire and had left more than 77 people dead. And now let's talk to these people on what do they think about it. मरांडी साहब, आप तो डॉक्टर हैं, आप देख रहे हैं कि क्या हो रहा है, आपको सरकार पर भरोसा है जो हालात हैं इस समय असम के?
अभी सरकार के ऊपर में हम लोग का विश्वास नहीं है, क्योंकि अभी तक जहां से आदमी लोग आया है वहां तक अभी माने जितना प्रोटेक्शन होना चाहिए अभी तक इतना प्रोटेक्शन नहीं हो रहा है।
क्या दिक्कतें हैं? आप तो रेफ्यूजी कैंप में रह रहे हैं, जिंदगी में जो कमाई है सारी वो घर में रहती है और सारा घर छोड़कर, सारा सामान छोड़कर आप अभी रेफ्यूजी कैंप में रह रहे हैं परिवार के साथ। कितनी तकलीफ हो रही है?
तकलीफ तो पूरा तकलीफ है। आप देखिए, आप खास देखिए, सब सारा घर छोड़ के यहाँ है, घर छोड़ के आदमी है, लेकिन जो उसका सारा संपत्ति है, जो आपका गोरू गाय है, वो तो नहीं है। अभी फिलहाल में जो हिफाजत मिलना चाहिए, जो सिक्योरिटी मिलना चाहिए, कोई सिक्योरिटी नहीं है। सारा आदमी यहाँ रिफ्यूजी कैंप में है। अभी फिलहाल में सरकार एकदम फिलहाल है। देखिए आप वहाँ कोई घर में अभी जाने से आपको एक आदमी नहीं मिलेगा, कोई नहीं है, कोई आपका उस सिक्योरिटी नहीं है, कोई फिलहाल में तो आज देखा है कोई नहीं है। अभी रात में आप जाके देखिए, वहाँ सारा आदमी यहाँ है लेकिन वहाँ कोई नहीं है, और सारा आदमी का जितना भी संपत्ति, जितना भी धान उन था, कोई नहीं है। अभी आदमी लोग खाएगा क्या? आज आप मंगलवार से 4-5 रोज हो गया, लेकिन आज से कोई वहाँ सरकार का जितना होना चाहिए, जितना कड़ी से कड़ी पुलिस मुतैन होना चाहिए, कोई पुलिस नहीं। इसलिए सरकार के ऊपर में हम लोग आदिवासी का जो वे है, हम लोग उठ गया है विश्वास।
सरकार तो बड़े वादे कर रही है, राजनाथ सिंह ने, गृह मंत्री है, उन्होंने कहा कि हम सुरक्षा देंगे, सब कुछ करेंगे, लेकिन मैंने वहां देखा कि लोग आदिवासी जितने हैं वो सब अपने ही तीर धनुष लेकर अपनी सुरक्षा कर रहे हैं। ऐसा क्यों?
सरकार का जो घोषणा किया है जहाँ चाराली में घोषणा किया, लेकिन अभी तक जहाँ वो घोषणा ग्रास रूट में अभी तक भी नहीं पहुंचा है, तो इसीलिए आदमी लोग अभी भी भय भाव आतंक में है। इसीलिए हम रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहता हूँ जो आदिवासी कितना बार मरेगा, आदिवासी असम में बहुत मर चुका है, अभी कितना बार मरेगा, हम लोग सुरक्षा चाहिए। वी आर ऑल इंडियन सिटीजन, सो आई रिक्वेस्ट हम लोग का जो सरकार है तो तुरंत सुरक्षित होना चाहिए। अपना आदमी संपत्ति सारा जितना गाय गोरू जितना धान चावल जितना है वो बिल्कुल सुरक्षित करने चाहिए।
Well, it's not about the property, but it is more about the confidence that they have lost in the state government. This is not for the first time that they've faced such an attack. It has happened earlier also. In Kokrajhar, I covered and I stayed there for more than a month, where I saw people being brutally killed and murdered one after the other. But this time, it is high time that the Assam government realizes that it's not about the loss of lives, but also about the basic intelligence information that needs to be taken seriously before any kind of stern action is promised against these militants. And with the fact that the DGP of Assam has said and confessed in the unified meeting today that Songvijit Group's head, Songvijit Brahma, is presently in Myanmar, and he's announced a prize money of rupees 24 lakh for anyone who gives any information related to it. So perhaps it's the basic information and intelligence failure too here.
I want to ask you, Kishalai, stay with me, Manogya. Kishalai, you were talking about how, General Shankar Prasad said, on the face of it, there might be some results, but at the end of the day, this crisis isn't going to go away because it's going to need much more than a military operation. But speaking specifically, Kishalai, about what's happening right now, the danger hasn't passed, has it? I mean, there is still the very real risk of backlashes, of even more violence. The people standing there with Manogya in Sonitpur, maybe in refugee camps right now, but the people in those areas are definitely far from safe.
Oh, absolutely, Shiv. In fact, in a guerrilla warfare, I think the insurgents always have the advantage of time and place.
Yes.
It is of their choosing. And, I wouldn't be surprised, if there are attacks carried out by the group, because they have done this in the past. There is a record of the past. But, I want to bring in a few words that would be important to understand the situation. So we are saying it's, we use militancy, insurgency, terrorism, etc., etc. In this case, in the Bodoland crisis, there is a systematic ethnic cleansing that has been going on. You see, the demand for the Bodoland state started in 1967, when they started for demand for a state called Udayachal.
Yes.
Later, of course, they found it too Sanskritized, so they made it Bodoland. And several organizations have come, gone, merged. The political process has absorbed them. But I think the one policy of the government, which is of you could debate that really, but of actually granting amnesty and absorbing them into political process, letting these guys away with murder, because in Bodoland since 1985, several lakhs, and I'm not exaggerating, there is no data really to prove how many lakhs, but several lakhs, we can add the figures together, have been displaced. You have one of the highest internally displaced people in the country in Bodoland. Thousands have died out there, have gone missing. Extortion continues, intimidation continues. Several hundreds of other families have also been forced to move out. There is a humanitarian crisis that has been unfolding for decades now. Not just 96 the Adivasis were hit, 98 they were hit, 2012 they were hit, 2014 again. How many times the same people are going to go back to relief camps and try and each time they want to come back and claim their land, the land is gone. It is about land, not land the other way. It is land about, because the Bodos need to claim 50-50 of Assam.
Absolutely.
And that is where the problem lies. So that's why I'm saying the statehood is the issue out here. And unless that is addressed and resolved, we are not going to see this kind of a violence going away, because also General Saab should be able to
I want him to
put down a lot of arms floating out there. I'm not really sure what has happened. So each time they surrender, they don't give up the arms. For example, in 2003 when BLT came over ground, 2,600 cadres surrendered. Only 1,000 arms were given up, and the government did not make it mandatory for the arms to be given up.
General Shankar Prasad, this is a dangerous situation. The picture that Kishalai paints is a frightening one. At the end of the day, right now on the cutting edge are the security forces, like it or not. It's the army, it's the Assam Rifles, it's the central paramilitary forces, the Assam police, the men and women in uniform out there who are going to be, attempting to keep the peace. I mean, this sounds, the things that have been coming out from Home Minister Rajnath Singh, from the others, cowards, we will not spare them, we will go after them, until the last one is gunned down. A lot of muscular, tough talk is happening. Does that betray to you, General Prasad, being a soldier, being a person who's, been in a counter-insurgency operation, a sort of lack of understanding of the situation? Or do you think that the government will appreciate that this is a much more complicated situation than just a military operation can solve?
Well, to any mind, it is a very complex situation. It is not a military situation. You're not fighting an enemy. Therefore, if you fight an enemy, the army goes all out and takes military action.
Yeah.
Here, the army cannot take an all-out military action because they are your own people. The principal issue which we must address, the government must address, is the problem about land identifications, which my fellow panelist has just highlighted.
Absolutely.
The army will create a situation. The army will create peace for the time being now. The army operation will last for X number of days. The army will use all the techniques they've got.
The army may even be blamed for certain things.
Semblance of peace there. No, the army. Well, so people will start saying there have been excesses by the army.
Exactly.
And that is something that the army can live with. And our soldiers are well trained not to indulge in any of those activities. Leave that aside for a moment.
Yeah.
I am just saying that certain duration of time the army is going to be used for this operation, after which peace will look to have come. But the bigger issue is this not going to come back again?
Correct, as Kishan said.
What are we doing about it to see that the long-term solutions are found? We have to look at our borders. We have to see what are our relationships with Myanmar, with Bhutan, with other states like Arunachal Pradesh as far as this state is concerned. How are these centuries existing there? You will recall Bhutan army at one point in time had carried out operations and eliminated some terrorists.
Yes.
Similarly, we have to discuss this matter with Myanmar. We have to discuss this matter with Bhutan, and strengthen ourselves in Arunachal Pradesh.
And that's happening. Yeah.
Find out where the hideouts are, destroy them as much as we can. And these are all related to intelligence. And intelligence leads to a national issue.
Absolutely.
That do we have an NCTC?
Yes.
Why is this country not having an NCTC? Because that is where the entire intelligence is going
what
to
has
be
happened this week
collected,
throws up many
understood, analyzed and disseminated.
Yes. Many big questions that arise from what has happened and also the government's response. But I want to get Manogya back in, with the people who are with her. Manogya, a lot of anger currently in Sonitpur, in Kokrajhar. We've seen violent protests, against the Tarun Gogoi government, calling for his resignation. Obviously, this is something that hasn't, that has happened many times before. At this point of time, the central government has made a lot of noise. The Home Minister, visited. Tomorrow morning, the Army Chief is going to be visiting. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, has tweeted about it. We understand that he's been getting a daily briefing on what's happening in Assam. I want you to ask the people there, because it's a circle of violence, a circle of existence in Assam. Do the people who are with you, Manogya, if you could ask them, have any faith in the central government? Do they believe that the central government perhaps has the political will or the resources to actually do something different to break this cycle of violence?
Before I do that, I'd also make a point here that there is an act in place which is called the Assam Disturbed Area Act, and this is at par with AFSPA, where army, including the state police, has complete freedom of firing in such kind of insurgencies. But they have never used it. They have never used it. Even constables have a right to fire here, but they have never used it, and that will give you an idea on how disappointed people are with the state government. But as far as the central government is concerned, आपको लगता है कि केंद्र सरकार से जिस तरह की प्रॉमिसें आ रही हैं, वादे आ रहे हैं, ये कहा जा रहा है कि वो एक्ट करेंगे, गृह मंत्री आए राजनाथ सिंह यहाँ पर और नरेंद्र मोदी रोज हर खबर ले रहे हैं, आपको लगता है आपको उन पे भरोसा है?
ना, हमको पहला इलेक्शन का पहला हमको भरोसा था, हम लोग को माने भरोसा था, लेकिन इलेक्शन के बाद में हम लोग का भरोसा नहीं है। अच्छा दिन का जो फल आदिवासी लोग ने अभी तक नहीं देखा, थोड़ा भी नहीं देखा। इसीलिए राजनाथ सिंह जी जहाँ यहाँ से विश्वनाथ चार अली से जहाँ इफेक्टेड एरिया है, स्पॉट एरिया है, यहाँ ज़्यादा दूर नहीं था, 25 किलोमीटर्स डिस्टेंस ओनली, तो यहाँ जाने नहीं सका। लेकिन जहाँ आईसिस का जहाँ भभूकी है, मौलवादी का जहाँ भभूकी है, जम्मू कश्मीर जैसा जगह में वो पूछने सकता है, लेकिन यहाँ किस लिए एनडीएफबी को डरने के लिए नहीं गया है कि आदिवासी के ऊपर में कोई मरम स्नेह नहीं, इसीलिए नहीं गया है। इसीलिए हमको बहुत दुख लगा, आदिवासी को दुखजनक का बात हो गया आदिवासी के लिए।
Well, it's very interesting. At a time when BJP is making a government in Jharkhand, one of the most tribal dominated and Adivasi areas, they have possibly ignored, that's what the people here feel, that they have not only been ignored but also have been left unattended as far as their own country is concerned. And as Kishlay pointed out, it's not the first time that they have been displaced from their homes. It's been happening number of times. And how many times will these people be displaced like this, living in refugee camps? And let me tell you, it's extremely chilly here, and they have been traveling and living without basic woolen clothes and blankets because they could not manage anything when they rushed out from their home. And that will give you an idea on how much difficulty these people are facing. And as it is, it's a war of land, it's a war of issue, not just a war which will be fought between army and security agencies and other terrorist organizations here.
Kishalai, we're almost completely out of time, but I want to ask you this question, since you've spent time there the longest. You've reported on many cycles of many acts of violence in this seemingly endless cycle. Narendra Modi, when he became the Prime Minister, I'm not saying that anybody should give importance to political gestures and symbolism. Politicians have their own pulls and pressures, but one of the first places he went to was the Northeast. He's been there a couple of times. He makes it a point to talk about the Northeast. He selected someone like General V.K. Singh to take care of Northeast affairs. I mean, there's clearly a certain amount of importance, perhaps, compared to previous administrations, that is perhaps being paid. Are you cynical about that, or do you think that it could actually mean something meaningful as far as the violence is concerned?
Well, I don't think so. It's going to work. If I'm cynical, I am not very optimistic, but I would give him the benefit of doubt. Because 2015, elections coming up in Assam,
yes,
and BJP would like to win as many seats out there. So, if even for that purpose there is some amount of proactive movement from the government, that would be good. But I think what's missing from the bureaucracy, particularly, and from the civil society elsewhere, is that there should be a change of perception. I mean, there should be a greater awareness. The perception of that Northeast is one, that is a wrong perception, because Northeast is not one. In Assam particularly, you have about 1 million mutinies. So you have to treat each of them separately and not put into all of them in one template. And I think that's where we have gone wrong. Also, for example, specifically one problem, the Adivasis in Assam have been demanding a scheduled tribe status. They are scheduled tribe. They have enjoyed scheduled tribe status in Jharkhand and other places. The moment now the government has been dithering on this, because the moment they are given scheduled tribe status out there, then the 6th scheduled constitutional validity of the Bodos claiming their chunk over that Bodo land goes away.
Yes.
Okay, and that is something that the Bodos do not want. So the closer that the government gets into resolving the Adivasi issue, the deeper it is going to get into a problem with the Bodo land issue. But if it starts appeasing the Bodos, then you have the Bengali speaking Muslims, the Adivasis, which are the two significant populations, chunks out there, and the other non-Bodos who are going to be up in arms. So I'm not very sure of how they are going to deal with this situation right now. Currently, the only option, of course, is military option to calm the situation down, the anger down, and then perhaps open up.
And well, hopefully there will be follow-up action, and it won't have to be military. But General Prasad, if I could bring you in briefly, and I like talking specifics. If I know it's a broad question, but specifically speaking, if you had to, were in a position to advise the government as a military man about the things that need to be done, and not necessarily just militarily, going forward into this specific operation, but also extending to other Northeast groups like the Alpha and others, what would your advice be, sir?
First of all, we must go to the core problems of people who live there. the kind of demography that exists in an area, we need to understand what are the aspirations and demands of the people, and they need to be addressed.
Yes.
That is the first point. Second point, you got to make the local police more effective and local intelligence apparatus more effective. And thirdly, at the central government level, you need to have a national counter-terrorism center, which collates all this information and is able to disseminate it in a timely manner. These are some of the major. The principal issue where the central government comes in and the state government comes in is to look at the problems of the people. The Bodo problem, the tribal people's problem, the Muslims who have come from across the borders problem, and of course the relationship with the neighboring two countries like Myanmar and like Bhutan, as to how they can cooperate at the national level, at the local level, to see that centuries are not permitted to grow in their own country.
Absolutely.
So these are the macro issues, and this is something not very profound I've said for the first time today. This is well known to people who are in authority, but the problem is that we seem to neglect it the moment there is peace. Now once this army operation gets over in a couple of days and peace comes, we will again forget what happened.
Exactly. Well, we certainly hope that doesn't happen. This, as this debate has, unequivocally shown, this is an enormously complex problem. It isn't just a manhunt for about 200 terrorist people responsible for what happened on Tuesday night. This is a colossally larger problem. It goes into the very roots of land, of statehood, of identity, of ethnicity in the Northeast. The media is frequently accused, and rightfully so, of ignoring what happens in the northeastern states. And as Kishalai Bhattacharjee says, it frequently clubs the Northeast as one place. They're vastly separate states and vastly different identities in that. And perhaps the attention that's being paid to what happened in Assam this time will be the beginning of commensurate attention paid to one of the most important parts of this country. Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, Kishalai Bhattacharjee and Manogya Loiwal, thank you very much for joining us on the To The Point debate this evening.